You bought the organic label, you paid extra for it. You read the back panel, you did everything right, and your baby was still being fed inorganic arsenic, lead, and cadmium at levels that company executives already knew about, because there was no law forcing them to stop. This isn't a scary headline. This is a 2021 U.S. Congressional Subcommittee report based on internal documents those companies were compelled to hand over. The findings cover 6 brands that together represent the majority of the baby food market in America. Brands sitting in your pantry right now. I spent weeks going through that report, the lab data behind it, and the FDA's response. What I found is not a fringe concern. It is a documented, ongoing failure, and the part that genuinely disturbed me, I'll get to. But you need to understand what they found first, because the numbers are not what you expect. Let's go through them, not generally, specifically. Brand 1, Happy Baby, made by Nurture Inc. Happy Baby markets itself on clean ingredients and transparency. Their internal test results, submitted to the Congressional Subcommittee, showed inorganic arsenic levels as high as 180 parts per billion in finished products. The FDA's own proposed limit for infant rice cereal, one of the only categories with any proposed guidance at all, was 100 parts per billion. Happy Baby's products were running at 80% above even that. Their official response called their products safe and cited compliance with existing regulations. We'll come back to what that phrase actually means. Brand 2, Beech-Nut Nutrition. Beech-Nut's internal standards, the limits they set for themselves, permitted finished products containing up to 20 parts per billion of lead. The American Academy of Pediatrics, in a formal 2016 policy statement, stated that there is no established safe level of lead exposure in children, not a low level, no level. Beech-Nut knew this. Their internal threshold existed anyway. Brand 3, Earth's Best Organic, made by Hain Celestial. This is the one that gets parents the hardest. Earth's Best is the brand you choose specifically because you're trying to do better. Organic is on the label in large text. The Congressional Subcommittee's findings showed finished products containing inorganic arsenic as high as 129 parts per billion. Here's what organic actually certifies: the agricultural practices used to grow the crops. It says nothing, legally nothing, about the heavy metal content in the soil those crops absorbed before harvest. You paid more for a label that didn't cover the thing you were worried about. Brand 4, Gerber. Gerber cooperated with the investigation, which is a meaningful distinction from some others on this list. Their internal documents also showed heavy metal detection across product lines. Their testing protocols were more extensive. The cooperation matters. It doesn't change what the tests found, but it reflects a different posture toward accountability than what you'll hear about next. Brand 5, Plum Organics. Plum Organics declined to cooperate with the Congressional Subcommittee investigation. The subcommittee noted that refusal explicitly in the published report. We don't have their internal test data because they chose not to provide it. What we do have is independent lab testing commissioned by Healthy Babies' Bright Futures, conducted with products purchased directly from retail shelves, which found heavy metal contamination in their product line consistent with the broader market findings. Brand 6, Sprout Organic Foods. Same situation. Declined to cooperate. No internal documents submitted. The subcommittee flagged the refusal. Independent shelf testing tells a similar story. Here's the question you should be asking right now. If your products were clean, why wouldn't you cooperate? Stay with me here, because this is the section that changes how you think about all of it. Heavy metal exposure in adults and heavy metal exposure in a 7-month-old are not the same event. They're not even close. Between roughly 4 and 24 months, a child's brain is undergoing the most concentrated period of neurological development it will ever experience. Myelin formation, synaptic connection, prefrontal cortex growth, all of it happening simultaneously at a rate that will never repeat. During this window, the blood-brain barrier is not fully formed. Compounds that an adult body would partially filter pass more directly into developing brain tissue. In 2020, Healthy Babies' Bright Futures, working in partnership with researchers at Duke University and UC Berkeley, tested 168 baby food products purchased from retail shelves. 95% contained at least one heavy metal. 73% contained more than one. That's not a contamination anomaly. That's market-wide. Now here's the number I want you to sit with. A peer-reviewed analysis published in JAMA Pediatrics in 2021 by researchers at Florida State University College of Medicine estimated that dietary lead and inorganic arsenic exposure in children under 5 is associated with a collective loss of more than 11 million IQ points annually across the U.S. child population. 11 million IQ points every year. Not from a factory accident or a contamination event, from routine commercial baby food consumption. Dr. Bruce Lanphier at Simon Fraser University, whose research on blood lead levels was published in The Lancet, has consistently documented that cognitive effects from early life lead exposure occur at levels below what the CDC's previous guidelines even flagged as a concern. Guidelines the CDC itself revised downward in 2021 because the old threshold was inadequate. If you've seen behavioral or developmental concerns in your child and you've been feeding them commercial rice-based foods regularly, I'm not telling you that's the cause. I'm telling you this evidence exists, it's peer-reviewed, and most parents have never been told it. Drop a comment if you knew any of this before today. I genuinely want to know how many people are seeing this for the first time. Here it is, the thing I kept coming back to. When the congressional report dropped in February 2021, several of these companies issued public statements. Some promised internal reviews. Some announced reformulation timelines. Nurture, Happy Baby's parent company, said they were proud of their product's safety record and pointed to compliance with existing federal regulations. That statement is technically true, and that's the problem. For most baby food product categories in the United States, there are no enforceable federal limits on heavy metal content. Not inadequate limits. Not limits under review. No, limits. A company can have internal test results showing inorganic arsenic at 180 parts per billion. They can decide not to reformulate. They can decide not to disclose that number on the label. They can decide not to issue a voluntary recall. And they are in full legal compliance with U.S. federal law. That is not a corporate conspiracy. It's a regulatory gap. And it's one that has been documented since at least a 2012 Consumer Reports investigation that flagged inorganic arsenic levels in infant rice products and published the specific numbers. That was 13 years ago. Why hasn't it been fixed? Because reformulating rice-based products costs money. Rice is cheap, shelf-stable, and scalable. Oat-based and multigrain alternatives cost more to source and process. Without a mandatory legal threshold forcing that reformulation, the economic incentive to change is limited. The FDA's Closer to Zero action plan, announced in 2021, set timelines extending to 2024 and 2025 for proposed action levels, some of which remain in draft status as of the time this was filmed. Families were feeding their children these products while that timeline played out. Now subscribe if you want to keep seeing this kind of investigation. We go through food brands, regulatory loopholes, and the documented gap between marketing and evidence every week. Back to what you need to know. You cannot eliminate all heavy metal exposure. It's in soil, water, and the food supply at baseline. The goal is meaningful reduction during the window that matters most, the complementary feeding period. Here's the priority order. First, and highest impact, remove rice-based products from the daily rotation. Infant rice cereal and rice-based puffs are the most consistently contaminated category across every independent study and the congressional data. Replace with oat-based cereals. Look for whole grain oats as the first listed ingredient, or iron-fortified multi-grain blends. The iron content you're trying to get from rice cereal is available from other sources without the arsenic load. Second, rotate Single food dependency amplifies whatever is in that food. Cycling across vegetable purees, fruit options, and legume-based foods distributes any residual exposure across a wider dietary base. No single product dominates the diet. Third, and this surprises most parents, sweet potato and carrot purees are genuinely nutritious and should stay in the rotation. But both crops accumulate cadmium and lead from soil at moderate rates. Nutritionally excellent, not unlimited. Make them part of the diet, not the majority of it. For parents who want product-specific testing data, the Healthy Babies. Bright Futures. Testing database is publicly available at hbbf.org. Consumer Reports has published product-level heavy metal results. These aren't perfect. Testing is a snapshot, not a continuous monitor. But they are the best publicly available consumer tool right now. If any of this intersects with a health concern about your specific child, a pediatrician who knows your child's history is the right next conversation. What's here is a starting point, not a clinical assessment. Here's the bottom line. 6 of the most trusted baby food brands in America, Happy Baby, Beechnut, Earth's Best Organic, Gerber, Plum Organics, and Sprout Organic Foods, were not selling illegal products. That's the part that matters. They were operating in a regulatory environment that had not established enforceable limits for the specific contaminants that peer-reviewed research had already identified as neurologically significant during infant brain development. Organic does not mean free of heavy metals. Trusted brand is not a safety certification. These are marketing categories. Knowing the difference is the most important thing you now have that you didn't have before you clicked on this video. What to do today? Swap rice-based products, rotate the diet, check the HBBF database before your next purchase. The broader implication is this: the food system for the most vulnerable consumers in America, infants during their single most critical developmental window, operated for decades with less regulatory oversight than the food system for adults. That's not an accident. It's the result of a regulatory process that moves slowly, responds to industry pressure, and rarely makes front-page news. The investigation into what's inside infant formula, different brands, different mechanisms, equally documented, is already up. That one surprised me even more than this one did. Remember, the front of the package is marketing. The truth is always behind the label.